ho, ho, you lovelies. Merry Christmas. It is a holly jolly one. We thought we were done for the year, but no, there's more. We thought we'd bring you a very special Christmas episode. Jake, what are we playing the folks?
It is a Christmas surprise here on Christmas Day. We decided instead of being completely dark in the maid feed for a couple of weeks, let's just give them a little something to say
taste.
Thanks, to say holly jolly, merry very, and happy horny, and all the things. A couple years ago, wait, when was it?
2022?
If we were smart, we would have thought, no, at the end of 2023. So last year at this time,
Oh, amazing.
we over on the Patreon decided to do a 2-part Lethal Weapon special. Lethal Weapon is Koi's favorite movies.
Yep. Favorite Christmas movies and some of my favorite movies of all time.
And I legitimately didn't remember seeing them, though felt that I had. So we recorded.
We recorded.
It's listen.
That's
I
a
got
slur of some kind.
too
Jake.
much eggnog, baby. Hey, I'm a teetotaler.
Let's get recorded in here.
That's a you can't say that. I'm not gonna lie. Of all the words, that's the one I want back.
I know. I've thought about that a lot.
I know it's Christmas.
Are we gonna get canceled on
We're gonna
Christmas?
get canceled. But all right. Anyways, okay. So last year, around this time, we did a 2-part Patreon special, talking all about Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we thought, as a general thank you for just all of our listeners being fucking awesome, and and for the sake of not being dark here, we're gonna go ahead and give you guys a little taste. We're gonna give you the Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 episode from our Patreon archive.
You get a sense of what the Patreon is, and you also get a free episode that is lethal-tastic. I love this franchise, and it's the Christmas holiday. Like, it's what we do. It's a giving.
Yeah. So, a little free taste from the Patreon here on Christmas Day. Without further ado, you want to listen to us chat about Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2 from last year?
We were so young.
We were so young.
These whippersnappers.
If only I knew then what I know now.
Now we're too old for this shit.
Would have canceled the show by now.
That's fair. We're about to discuss something I'm sure won't ruin my holidays. The 4 Lethal Weapon movies with one diehard fan and one Cheshire cat grinning Jake Lloyd Bacon about to find out what he thought of my beloved Lethal Weapon. How you doing today, Jake?
Interesting that you call yourself a diehard fan when we're about to talk about Lethal Weapon.
Oh, puns were intended because I think Die Hard is the much more watered down attempt at Lethal Weapon.
Oh, that's cute. So
it's the layman's Christmas action franchise.
Today we're talking only about Lethal Weapon movies. So we've talked about Lethal Weapon for years. It's Koi's favorite thing that's ever existed in all of time and space. Mel Gibson is his favorite.
After that psycho pension.
Mel Gibson is not only his favorite actor, but his favorite person. He loves all of his views. He fully supports Mel Gibson and everything he does.
You know, I call him sugar tits, and it's a bond we share.
So, guess what, guys? Hey, everybody! Hey, happy holidays, you guys! You know how you go to holiday dinners and you go, I have a feeling my uncle and my dad are going to fight this week.
Well, tune in.
Welcome to holiday dinner. Merry Christmas. I watched the Lethal Weapon movies. We're gonna go on a journey today. Okay, we're gonna go on a little journey. Up until this point in time, my thought on Lethal Weapon was, I remember liking it, but not caring, and also I don't remember a ton. That's been my experience with Lethal Weapon as a franchise. All right, I know I've seen Lethal Weapon. That's like a thing that I know in my brain. All right. So I'll dive into some of the details. I took notes as I was watching the movies, as I'm one to do when it's something I know we want to talk about. But I'm going to bury the lead here right off of the bat, and I'm going to blow Koi's mind here. Halfway through Lethal Weapon, I am staring at the fucking screen, seeing the time tick away and how much of the movie's happening, and thinking to myself, where the fuck is Joe Pesci?
Had you never seen one?
And I'm thinking, like, where the fuck are the Nazis? And I'm seeing Jake Busey, and I'm like, Gary Busey rather. I'm thinking, like, Gary Busey, like, is he one of the Nazis? I remember they were like making a bunch of fucking Nazi jokes, and I'm thinking to myself, like, the movie's almost over. I'm like, when's the fucking toilet bowl scene? That's my favorite scene.
With 2? Had you seen 2, 3, and 4?
I think I've never seen Lethal Weapon before.
Oh my God.
I think that in my brain, as a kid, whenever Lethal Weapon 2 was on TV, which it was on apparently all the fucking time, I think I thought I was watching Lethal Weapon.
That's so... And I could see that because they do a good enough job making it its own movie. Like, it doesn't rely... None of them rely on the other much.
Honestly, halfway through the movie, I'm just like, man, I fucking really don't remember this movie. And then all of a sudden, nothing started to happen. Like, none of the things I recognized started to happen.
Sure.
And that I started to have the realization of like, oh my God, I think I've always thought that Lethal Weapon 2 is Lethal Weapon. So yeah, so that was my, that I know I'm
is a good way to discover that moment.
I'm burying the lead here, but that is, I think that's where we're at. I think this week I watched Lethal Weapon for the first time.
That after having memories of 2, 3, and possibly 4.
Yes. Now, that's not to say that there weren't things in this movie, in Lethal Weapon 1, that like I recognized, but it very well...
so much pop culture.
Exactly. It very well may just be because I've seen it in clips. I've seen it in everything there is, right? So let's dive into it. Lethal Weapon, literally, it starts with jingle bells, boobs, blow, and someone dying, which should or could be a potential title for Shane Black's memoir.
I hope it is.
Jingle bells, jingle bells, boobs, blow, and someone dying. There you go. Hi, Spidey Cat. Merry Christmas, Spidey Cat. Spidey Cat's on the camera now for me. I'm gonna come right out and say it. The worst thing about these movies, the thing that it does not hold up, and I understand it's a pioneer and it's a genre creating franchise and era. Oh my God. I want to take that fucking saxophone and shove it up Eric Clapton's stupid fucking ass. It is the most obnoxious fucking score I've ever heard in a movie, especially in the first movie. Apparently I'm upsetting Spidey Cat.
You. He's like, I think he's a big sax.
Oh, he's agreeing.
He's a big sax denier, and Lost Boys really upset him.
Yeah, if you're not aware, Eric Clapton is accredited as one of the primary people who did the score for this movie. Fuck that guy, and fuck this goddamn saxophone. It's so bad, and in every single movie that I think time will progress to the point where we get into the 90s by the time we made the last movie, the fourth one's 98 for Christ's sakes, just a big long gap. Like enough time passed, and in my brain I'm thinking like, this will go away soon, and it fucking never does. The entire goddamn franchise. As an actor, I would be livid. If I was fucking Mel Gibson or Glover, I would be so pissed because every single moment that I tried to inject some fucking emotion into what is, I'm sorry, a pretty shallow franchise, it's completely undercut by this god-awful fucking score. Every time someone says something that should have an emotional weight, they turn around and it's like, and I'm just like, fucking stop it. It's so bad. And I get it that it's of the era, and maybe I'm watching it with a 2023 lens, but I don't care. That's my experience, and it's fucking terrible. The scores to these movies are bad. 100% full stop, nothing redeeming about them. Do you have a rebuttal?
So much.
Do you have a rebuttal?
So much. It is as much a part of what Lethal Weapon is as them talking about Briggs being a cop on the edge. The saxophone is a character, like New York is a character in Spider-Man. It is so essential to my experience. I love the saxophone in Lost Boys because I love the saxophone in Lethal Weapon. It's like one of my favorite characters from Lethal Weapon got to manifest physically and get oiled up and appear in Lost Boys.
Well, let me tell you this. My favorite, I'll tell you right now, I know that I'm spoilers. I want to go through my notes here, but like spoilers, my favorite one is Lethal Weapon 2. And
okay, that doesn't surprise me.
It's the one without the saxophone, by the way. It's the same shitty music style, but they traded in for electric guitar.
Yeah, they tried to make it more modern.
Alrighty, so let's continue with some of my notes. Just as I'm watching through the Lethal Weapons here, I wrote this era of movie scores does not hold up. The wet reverb sax ruins every moment of and turns things that are dramatic into comedy, even they're not intentionally. I wrote a couple lines that are my favorites, like the fucking line. Like Dick Donner knows how to direct people connecting emotionally without saying too much. Murtaugh saying like when his partner looks at him and goes like, "Oh, you shaved the beard," and Murtaugh goes like, "Some detective." It's so fucking good. It's so good. The performances in this movies that are, in my opinion, sorry, Coy, kind of poorly written, are so good. They're so well acted that they save the entire goddamn franchise. Glover and Gibson are incredible, and they will be met eventually by the greatest elevator in franchise fucking history in Joe Pesci. So yeah, I wait, is Gary Busey one of the Nazis? Where are the Nazis? I wrote, movies don't unravel like this anymore. And by that, I mean unhinged and insanely. That first movie.
The third act is so fucking insane.
Not even the third. I mean, at this point, I'm probably only in the second act. I'm taking this note, but like the level of like, this gets bigger and zanier. It happens so rapidly in that first movie.
And I think that's part of what I love about the 80s and especially Lethal Weapon you get an established team of like the people you love, and it is their acting that is like, I love everything about them.
Yes.
Like I care more about the cat in Lethal Weapon than I care about most actors.
Oh, and I have those in my notes.
Yes. So, and like the details of like end apartheid on the fridge in the first one that sets up apartheid in the second one, that I'm like, I'll never know if that was intentional. The details in these films are better than most, to the level that by the time it gets wacky, it's not like a bad sci-fi franchise. It's like, oh, I love them so much. It can go wherever and I'm invested. And I think that's the strength of them, is the action can get so absurd, but you love them. It's like the difference between John Wick 1 and 2 and John Wick 3 and 4 for me.
I will say that I agree with that, not in Lethal Weapon. I think the escalation that I'm talking about is more like what's at stake and the violence and the murder, the fucking people breaking in and killing fucking family. You know what I mean? Like that level, like the danger and stuff like that. The action, I'll have notes on later. I'll talk about the action, but there's definitely action set pieces that are in the middle of every one of these movies. Let me say that 2, 3, and 4 specifically, that are like, that ran or that walked so that Fast and Furious franchise could run.
Oh, there's a reason I love those movies. I was raised on these movies that are the babies of those movies.
So here's my overall crux with Lethal Weapon 1, and that is the story of a suicidal police officer who has nothing to lose is so good and so rich that it is unfortunately better than Dick Donner could make a mainstream movie with this studio at this point in history.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's not bad, right? By any means.
It's Dirty Harry that wants to die, and I think it's
just too much surface level. There's a few scenes where Mel Gibson goes like, motherfucker, I'm going to make this shit work. And
the scene after the jump is, I think, one of the best acted scenes in movies. The scene after he jumps off when he jumps off the building, that guy, after he handcuffs him, and he literally goes into that small room with Danny Glover and has the gun.
Right.
And Danny realizes he's not shitting around. Like,
but
that
can
scene
I say,
is cinema.
It's unfortunately, though, it doesn't hold up. And I know that not all movies are going to, and we shouldn't view everything under a 2023 lens, but it is unfortunate that the big lesson about someone's depression, grief, and suicidal thoughts is, shit, man, you really are crazy. You are a crazy. Oh, I thought that this was just a bit, but you're actually crazy in the head. And I'm like, that's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate we throw that around versus like, oh, you're hurting. Like, oh, you're like, you need, like, you're damaged versus like.
Yeah, I mean, we literally didn't have the language for that yet.
Of course.
It's like discovering a new color.
That's why I said it's unfortunate. Yeah. But
I don't think I've ever watched I can't watch the movie that way because I grew up on it when that was how we saw it. So it's like with other movies, like I think we had the same conversation with In Bruges. Like in 2008, homophobic jokes were a different thing. than they are now.
I gotta be honest with you. I mean, Donner's always been really good with like, he'll throw things that will trigger like the cultural conversation, but it's rarely like even I mean, there's a huge thing in Lethal Weapon 4, which we'll get to, about the whole thing where Murtaugh thinks that his would-be son-in-law is trying to impress him because he has a crush on him, and it's not handled,
right.
and it's not handled in a homophobic way at all.
No. I'm just using the example of crazy.
Right.
I'm paralleling crazy to homophobia.
Sure.
I'm just saying like the times.
Sure.
I think in the 2000s we were more comfortable with gay jokes than is acceptable.
Right.
But I can't watch movies that I've seen since that time and have that thing because I lived through when it was the time.
Right.
And I think Lethal Weapon, like I watched this when I was 1. I didn't know anything was wrong with calling somebody crazy. So it's hard. But I see what you're saying while also going like, that to me is like acting.
I think the ultimate, my big problem with Lethal Weapon, I think, is that it, we talked about this last week when you were talking about Rambo, where like the premise, the hook of this is the story of Riggs, but it's Murtaugh's story. It's a story of Riggs being sort of becoming Murtaugh's, not his problem, but becoming like a thing that Murtaugh needs to learn how to navigate, right? And by doing so ends up helping Riggs.
And this is going to sound very funny considering the reference you made earlier, but to me it's all about family. Like all of them.
Oh, well, I mean, there's a reason why the whole fucking series ends that way. I mean, the whole series
that's what I'm
up
saying,
until
is
the
like,
new one, but yes. The whole thing
that's
ends
what I mean
with
by
them
like
saying,
is Murtaugh has this beautifully established family. One of the reasons I love
100%.
it so much is they focus so much on the house that I remember when I moved to LA, I worked in this movie called Project X that filmed on the Warner Ranch, and there were movie stars walking around constantly.
Right.
And I had only been in LA for like 6 months. I was so starstruck by the Murtaugh house that I remember like not noticing human beings walking by because they made it a character.
Right.
And that's because I don't know any action franchise that focuses on family sincerely. I think that Fast and Furious is sincerity for Vin Diesel, but not for the rest of us. Like we don't know, like those lines are like, that's how I genuinely think he feels. Like I always talk about how I think Rob Liefeld draws how he actually sees the world. Because when I saw Fast 9 with Rob, it was as soon as John Cena appeared, he stood up and went, "Those arms." And I was like, oh, Rob is getting the moment of actualization in this moment. Like, this is how Rob has seen the world, and now someone looks like Rob Liefeld sees the world. I think Vin Diesel sees all those lines as how people are, but that never gets to translate in an action movie. And I think Lethal Weapon, I know you don't think it's well written, but I think the extremes of the dialogue with the sincerity of Dick Donner, it allows for sincerity in the family.
Let me elaborate and let me rescind. Well, it's not poorly written. It's not that it's not well written. It's underwritten. That's the problem. I think.
Oh, I see that. That's very different. I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm getting at. It's very underwritten, especially when it comes to the exploration of Riggs as a character, because the whole movie's really told through Murtaugh's point of view.
Sure. But that's the family element, I think, is
and again, that's the best part of it. 100%, I agree with you. The best part of this movie is when Riggs is with Murtaugh's family, and they are all
throughout
every single one of them. It's when there's just like, and again, this is what fucking Dick Donner does the best. All of my favorite parts of all of his movies are characters interacting with one another in ways that don't feel like there's a camera on them and someone yelled action a minute ago. Like, they're so organic. The kids in fucking Goonies, and the way fucking even the way that Clark and Lois speak to one another when they're on a date in fucking Superman. Like, it's just everything feels so organic. By the way, another thing that led to my confusion too is, and it's a nice little, like, it's what was happening in the world, so it makes sense. But I had a memory, like I said, of the quote Nazis. I know that that's just what they referred to them as. In the second one, I had a feeling that like South African apartheid was a part of Lethal Weapon, because my memory was confusing 2 for 1.
Right.
On the refrigerator in Murtaugh's thing, it says like, a free South African
apartheid sticker, which is
And in my brain, I went like, oh, so that is a part of this. So it made my confusion even worse seeing that. But yeah, the kitchen's great. The fucking family is so incredible. The daughter's so well cast. The fun little, like, she's got a crush on Riggs. It's a great story element. They don't lean into it in like a way that's too heavy, like, ham-fisted or heavy.
And it never gets creepy.
No.
And I love that Riggs plays back, but not in a way that ever feels malevolent.
He's just
like
fucking,
that's why it's so hard with Riggs in real life.
Yeah, he's just fucking with Murtaugh, which is just the best. He's, by the way, Riggs, and I will say this even at the end of it, Riggs is a terrible friend. he's
the worst, and I love him so much.
Constantly just ruining, just being cruel. I feel like I'm Riggs and you're Murtaugh. Anyways, all right. So even though I'm too old for this shit. So let's see. Continuing some of my notes. No, seriously, where is Joe passing the Nazis? Do I think Lethal Weapon 2 is actually Lethal Weapon 1? All right. This is the unfortunate. This is where I think the movie loses me. Is that it's the biggest action, one of the biggest action movies of all time. And my favorite parts of the movie are what we just said, are not the action. I think the action in Lethal Weapon leaves much to be desired. That hand-to-hand fight in the fucking sprinkler that's supposed to be the big climax with Garrett Busey and Riggs is one of the worst fucking movie fights I've ever seen. It's so bad. It's so poorly choreographed. It's even more poorly shot. And then it escalates to what is this god-awful half-frame forced slow-mo where, like, Gary Busey, like, pulls the cop over and grabs his gun, but he misses. Like, do another take, Richard. What are you doing? And it takes like 2 whole seconds for him to get the gun and point it, and then Riggs turns with Murtaugh, and it's so bad. It's really...
And they're hugging. They're brothers, and they shoot them together, and it's peace.
It's really, really bad. It does not hold up. It is an unfortunate
Jake, that moment
ending.
ended racism. I don't know what you're talking about. I've seen it.
No, Predator did. It's an unfortunate ending to a good movie. All in all, for Lethal Weapon, it's a very fun movie, and I can see why it's held in high regards. I said, ultimately, it's a movie about a cat and a dog. But wait, and I mean that as Riggs and Murtaugh. And
the dog is Murtaugh, right?
Let me finish, goddammit. Yes, you fucking did it. Each of the cat and dog have the other as a actual companion. Riggs is the cat, and therefore he has a dog because he needs a dog. Murtaugh is a dog, has a cat because he needs that. That is filling the hole in their lives until they find each other. And then the cat and the dog have what the other one needs as a strength and a weakness, and then they come together in this beautiful, perfect
I love that.
family, if you will. That's my big takeaway.
Symbiosis.
That's my big takeaway. Ultimately, it's about a cat and a dog who both have one another as a companion. And then
as we get to the second movie, the dogs become so important.
My notes didn't end there. I wrote, wait, there's a song and it's awful? There's a Lethal Weapon song with the lyrics about Lethal Weapon? I wrote, that's terrible. And then I wrote at the end, but wait, who or what is the Lethal Weapon? They never explain. So let's move on to 2. That's how you start an action movie. Do you remember how number 2 starts?
The third one is the fire. What is the second one?
I was asking you because I didn't write it. I'm curious.
No, the third one is the big construction site with all the fire that turns into a flaming 3.
Yes.
Because I remember that was my favorite action sequence for like a decade.
Well, the third one is the bomb. Where he sets a fucking bomb off.
Yes. Which is fucking incredible.
The fourth one
is North Hollywood bank robbery that actually happened.
The fourth one is the guy with the napalm thrower.
Yeah, and the armor on.
Right. Yes.
That happened in North Hollywood. That's lovely. Based on a true robbery where a guy wore like Ned Kelly armor and got away with most of that shit.
I'm struggling to remember why I wrote this note. I should have been more specific in my notes, but I will say this: from Lethal Weapon 2 on, these are 3 consecutively of some of the best action movie intros ever fucking made. Dick Donner knows how to get you to go, what the fuck is this? Even if you've never seen a fucking, like, they're all an insane way to start a movie, each one. I'm struggling to remember what the second one was. I should have been
because the first one starts with her jumping off the building and it's like, whoa.
Right.
And then Riggs's introduction is ass naked in a trailer, which is incredible. Yes. And there's a great deleted scene that was his original introduction, which was him walking through a school shooter's gunfire.
Oh, God.
Basically having basically
Right.
having full lines of dialogue. So everyone else is like cowering, and he's just talking like a normal day in the park, walking through the school shooter's gunfire and takes out the school shooter. And like that was 40 years ahead of
That
its
would have
time.
been, I was gonna say that would have been an impactful fucking scene of the era for sure.
And it's genius because it shows how suicidal he is beforehand, but I think they saw it as making him too unlikable, whereas the naked like vulnerability lends itself. But you should watch the deleted scene. It's actually like it's one of my favorite Lethal Weapon scenes. It's just not in the movie.
Right. So by the way, I thought I had all of these. I only have 1 and 2 digitally. So I rented 3 and 4. So I don't have any deleted scene stuff, but maybe one day I'll pick up.
Oh, you own them digitally? The first two got it. Okay.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll pick up like a Blu-rays. I'm sure they probably have these at Game Dude in North Hollywood.
Every Black Friday, they're like $20 for the 4 of them.
So I wrote about George. Do you know who George is? Remember who George is?
No, is he the captain?
He's just like the boy that's hanging out in the family with the family at the beginning of the second one.
Yeah, Dimples.
George is a fucking star. I wrote. This guy is a star. He's in there busting lines with the family, talking about like, you met me last time, but whatever. And I'm like, I don't know who this kid is. I don't know what his career was like, but he's a star, and he fucking stole a moment in a scene with people who you can't take your eyes off of. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
I wrote the condom commercial setup for the daughter having a first commercial is a masterclass in situation comedy. Once again, Dick Donner, this is where he shines. Dick Donner shines when there's a bunch of people all communicating in a small confined space in ways that feel realistic. I loved it. I wrote, I love that the villain in this movie is just a James Bond villain. Like that old,
through.
He's just like an old evil. He even has like a weird pet. I did write that this is Joss Ackland, who we didn't talk about it on the podcast, but he just passed away.
A bunch of people texted me
at 95 years old. He passed away. This guy is like an insane career. He's so good. Joe Pesci's introduction, the moment I've been waiting for, a masterclass in introducing a character that you need to know everything about incredibly quickly. When they walk in on him and he is just going off on the two of them, you know everything there is to know about him. And oh my God, the greatest introduction to a duo to becoming a trio in movie fucking history. This is on par with adding Danny DeVito to Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like this, he fits in so perfectly, and the three of them are my absolute favorite things of all of those fucking movies.
I also want to give credit before we fully leave behind. Lethal Weapon 1, the scene where Mel's wearing the hat really low and Danny Glover goes gun and they meet for the first time is one of my favorite. How a unfortunate duo come together and then end up loving each other. I love that Danny Glover thinks that Riggs is crazy in the bad way, like not mentally ill, just like with a gun, and then it devolves into like him finding out he was to him, and then like that introduction, that meet cute, I think is as good as the Danny DeVito one. It's just like more subtle, but the Joe Pesci one, just more subtle. But then the Joe Pesci one is like, oh, this is a sequel. Oh, this is the kind of character we need, and it escalates on that meet cute so well.
So yeah, this, I mean, I guess I'll just say it now, but later on, like Lethal Weapon 2 is the beginning of turning this series into a comedy franchise.
I agree.
And to be honest with you, and by the way, you're gonna be upset. You're gonna think I'm crazy. Lethal Weapon 1, I give 3.5 stars. It gets an extra half star for its cultural importance, but it's not that 4 or 5 star. It didn't give me. It's too. Again, the subject matter's too good and serious for how underwritten it is for me perfectly. It still works. But it would have been 4 or 5 had it been whatever. Lethal Weapon 2, 4-star movie. It does what it wants to do, and it's exceptional. And I think a lot of it is because it just becomes funny and it becomes fun. And I think when you have this joy, the action that feels over-escalated matches versus the seriousness of the first movie with action pieces that are an 80s action movie.
I see that. The zaniness ties
and again,
better.
I do think a lot of it is like, did you watch it a lot growing up? And if I didn't, clearly I thought the second one was the first one.
This was at least once a year.
So let's see some of my notes here. Joe Pesci's introduction. 30 minutes in, and this is superior to the first movie for me by a country mile. I love the anti-apartheid stuff, connecting this to the real world. especially since I clocked that End Apartheid sticker on Murtaugh's fridge in the first movie and thought it was this movie. I wrote, so they just break in and they shoot the one cop with, oh, right. Okay. The sequence. This is what I'm talking about with this fucking escalation of weird shit where it's like, we need the set piece. We need an action set piece. We're at this point in the movie. We need a thing. So when the fucking apartheid Nazis, they're going to send a message to the cops and they start killing all the cops. That sequence.
Yeah.
You remember the sequence? It starts with one of the cops like hanging upside down in his fucking Batman stretcher. Right. And one of the guys just comes in and just goes, oh, I got you. And he just shoots him in the head. It cuts from that to what I'm assuming is the same team of villains who are all tasked with just killing cops. That same team then goes and rigs an explosive on a diving board.
Like Bond villains.
But wait, you walk in and just shoot one guy, and it's like, well, for the woman, let's put an explosive on a diving board. Do we know she's going to go swim today? No. But
we have to.
But you know what? We're willing to take a risk. What if like a squirrel goes on a diving board? Whatever.
Worth it.
But then they'll know that we're killing them and they'll probably get onto us. Doesn't matter. We're blowing up the diving board. You're really hung up on the diving board idea, Dolph. Whatever his fucking name is. Anyways, yeah. So that's
also
ridiculous.
a credit to that moment. I think one of the other strengths of this franchise is they use the same supporting cast members in all four, so you actually care about them.
Sure,
you
I do
care
like
about
that.
the captain. You care about the police.
I will say
when
when some of these characters died, I really literally went like, oh shit, I'm
yeah, and that wouldn't have worked without keeping the cast and
Yeah.
without caring about them as much. Like there are scenes in all four of them in the first one that make you love these characters enough that when this happens, it's shocking that like almost 50 Cent guy dies.
It's unfortunate that she's treated like a punchline, and this is an instance where some of the story is dated, but the psychologist in the police precinct is one of my favorite characters.
Trying to do her job.
She's so good, and I hate that it ends. I hate that it ends the way it ends in 4, even though it's hilarious. But let's continue here with 2. Okay, here we go. Sam, who is Riggs's dog, goes into his little cubby hole in the ground of the trailer when Riggs and the blonde, I forget her name, start getting busy. That alone tells me that Shane Black and his writers have clearly never had a dog. Because let me tell you, that dog would have been in between the two of them. What's fucking going on? Would have been nose and an ass. Would have been like, what's this smell? That's interesting. What are you guys doing to one another? That dog. There's 2 things that are said here. One, he's trained the dog. He's like, every time you see me with a boner, you go down there. Okay. Which
That
honestly,
I buy.
No, I don't buy that because Riggs can't take care of himself. He's not trained that fucking dog.
That's true.
I know the dog is smart, but still. Yeah. So yeah, then I wrote here, they traded sax for guitar, but it's still a terrible score. All in all, Lethal Weapon 2, much funnier. The story is a little bit more of a zany story, and I think it's because the villains are more. Now it's foreigners. Like it's just that thing where it's like that action movie trope where it's like, oh yeah, they're doing something illegal. They're laundering money. Joe Pesci elevates the comedy of it in a way that's very, very fun. I love Lethal Weapon 2. If I'm gonna rewatch any of these, it's gonna be that one. Merry Christmas. Oh boy, Coy, I sure want to hear the rest of that conversation. What do I have to do?
Well, I wonder what we said. You can find out over on patreon.com/KoiCast. Or maybe wait a whole year. We'll release the info. No, head over to patreon.com/KoiCast. Episodes 3 and 4, or, movies 3 and 4 of Lethal Weapon. I'm deep in the eggnog now myself.
And by the way, just for the sake of searching, those were from December 19th and 26th of last year.
Bananas.
So you got to go back. Those are episodes 171 and 172 of the Patreon Only Pod. There are, as of today, 215 episodes.
And we do between 216 episodes, and we review at minimum 3 things, usually like 7 to 10 things.
Yeah, this was a special that we did for just Lethal Weapon, but yeah, usually it's an
abundance of film and TV. So for quick math, 215, I know it's 216, but times 10, 2,000 things have been reviewed over there, which is absolute insanity. And you get access to all of that when you become a Patreon. You get all of the back catalog. You get everything in the future. We will, for the first time, I think in history, have one dark week of the Patreon over the holiday, but then we're back next year for like 50 weeks more goodness. So if you want to join the Patreon, that is how this show, KoiCast Main, is able to survive. So it's very appreciated. Head to koicast.com. You get shirts, mugs. You also get the Patreon. There's everything link-wise over at koicast.com, or just head over to patreon.com/koicast. And we appreciate each and every one of you patrons that are already over there, and anyone that wants to listen to stuff like this Lethal Weapon goodness. But most of all, you listen to the show in general. We appreciate you. We hope your holiday's awesome. We didn't want to leave it blank on the holiday itself, so hopefully you enjoyed this little taste of the other show.
And if you get in that Patreon, you will be in the know, because starting next month, starting this upcoming year, we're going to be recording our bi-weekly podcast episodes live.
See your faces.
We're going to be doing it as a live stream, so you'll be able to directly interact with us through the chat. You'll be able to affect the show as it happens. Get your opinions out there. Tell us how we're wrong, dumb, and annoying in real time.
Yeah, what a gift.
Only through the Patreon. So you got to become a patron to get access to that. So get in there now. Get in there now so that you don't miss it come our first episode, which we will be recording the end of next week, I believe.
The 3rd,
Yes.
and it's going to be our letterboxed episode where
Yeah.
we're going through all of our stats for the year. So if you want a nice perfect time year-end wrap-up for 2024, January 3, 2025, looking back at the whole year's movies and all of our stats, because we like math, over on the letterboxed episode.
Just to clarify, we are going to open up that live stream to anybody on the Patreon. It's not going to be locked to a specific tier.
Every tier.
You just have to be a member of Patreon. And our Patreon specifically.
Please,
not,
yes,
not
not
just
Patreon.
in general.
We like this site.
And you'll have access to it.
Yeah, so we're excited to level up this show, always evolving. We've survived the, launching it February 2020, which is a bold time, and now it's a next step in growing this show. So that is thanks to you. Thank you for being here. It means the world to us. I hope your holiday is magnificent. I hope this surprise delighted you like the perfect present under a tree. This is past us. We don't know what's under our tree yet, but as of this time, we will. I'm very excited. Anything you want for Christmas, Jake?
I'd like to go back and not have to have watched the Lethal Weapon movies.
Ouch, Jake. Ouch. I'm probably watching one right now. That is going to do it for this year's episodes in both KoiCast and Patreon form. Thank you to each and every one of you. So much love. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Lethal Weapon, and thank you to comic books for existing. We'll see you next year where we're even older to be doing this shit.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
It's Dragon Wagon.